Hello everyone and welcome back to English Tips for Spanish Speakers. Normally I present to you each week one English mistake that Spanish speakers make when they are learning English, and I give you tips on how to get past that mistake. But this week I'm going to do things a little bit different. This week I'm going to present to you 10 everyday English situations and teach you how to handle yourself in those situations, give you the right phrases, etc. So let's get started. So I thought it would be best if I presented to you a list of the 10 everyday situations, and then you can look at them and then you can try to decide yourself how you would handle it. And then I will talk about each one and you can see how you did after that. So here is the list here. Just one other quick thing. So you will probably have to pause the video and think about each answer individually. Everyday situation number 1. What are some other ways to say, how are you? So I just want to say from the start that how are you is a very good and acceptable way to say something. And it's a good fallback. You can always say how are you in every situation. And actually you have to use it, I think, in very formal situations and that situation where you don't know somebody so well. That being said, I actually don't say how are you very often in my life because I'm not often in those situations. I say these other phrases, and I've made a list for you in the slide that follows this section, and I divided them into two parts. There's the questions that start with how and the questions that start with what, and they have different answers, which I will talk about in the section that follows the slide. So the how questions are, how are you doing? That's very common. How's everything going? That's also very common. How's it going? That's probably the one I say the most. And how are things going? Okay, and then the what section. What's up? That's actually very common as well. What's going on? And what have you been up to? Everyday situation number 2. How do you respond to how are you and what's up? Okay, so the textbook answer to how are you in every textbook around the world is I'm fine, thank you, and you? And again, it's a very acceptable answer and it's a good fallback answer. But in reality, we don't actually say that very much. So we answer in many different ways. So if you're doing very well, you could say, great, actually. How about you? And two things with this. So the word actually is a great word that you should really get into your vocabulary. We say it all the time. And notice I said, how about you? So I reflect the question back to you. So that's a very important skill. You could also say, not bad. How's it going with you? And that's probably the one I say the most. It's pretty neutral. You're not doing fantastic, you're not doing bad, so not bad. And then again, I reflect the question back to you. And if you're doing a little bit negative, you could say, it could be better, I guess. How are you doing? So again, you're reflecting the question. And if you're doing terrible, and if you're speaking to the right person, you can say, awful, actually. It's been a rough week. How are you? So again, I reflect the question back to you. Okay, so those are the how questions, right? And with the what questions, it's actually pretty easy. So if you say, if I say to you, or if you say to me, what's up? I could say, not much. What's up with you? So not much is a very good answer to the what questions. Everyday situation number 3. How do you respond to thank you? So the standard response to thank you is, of course, you're welcome. And this is a very good response, and you can use it in any situation, and I do use it quite a lot. I think I more often say, no problem. That's a good response to thank you. And you might have learned that you could say, my pleasure. And this is okay, but it's a little bit too much and a little bit too formal, and I wouldn't use it very much. Everyday situation number 4. How do you respond to sorry? Okay, a few responses to I'm sorry. And again, I think it depends on the level of the apology. So if it's somebody's just a little bit sorry about something, you could say, don't worry about it, or it's okay, it's no problem. That might be a good response. And if it's a huge apology and it really affects your life and the person says, I'm really, really sorry, you could say, apology accepted. Everyday situation number 5. What do you say when you pass something to someone? Okay, this one is actually the easiest of the bunch. So let's say you ask me, can you hand me the marker? And I would say one of two things. I would say, here you go, or here you are. So here you go, here you are. That's about it.
Everyday situation number 6. What do you say when you are at a table and want people to start eating?
Okay, I've just cooked a dinner and I have friends and family around and I want them to start eating because they're waiting patiently and politely. So I think what I would say in an informal situation is dig in, so just start eating. And I could also say, for example, help yourself, so just start eating, basically.
Everyday situation number 7. What do you say at a dinner table to indicate you hope people enjoy the food?
Okay, and this familiar phrase that's used in many languages around the world, if you want people to enjoy the food in English, then we usually use the French, so you would say bon appetit. Or if you don't want to use that foreign language, then you could say enjoy your meal.
Everyday situation number 8. What do you say when you are introduced to somebody for the first time?
So I'm introduced to somebody. Let's say someone says, this is Timo. And I would say, nice to meet you. And then Timo would say to me back, nice to meet you too. So it's always good to say nice to meet you too. So you shouldn't hesitate to do that.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit about a mistake I hear a lot. So the first time you meet somebody, you say nice to meet you, but that's the only time you ever say nice to meet you to somebody. So after that, you say nice to see you or nice to see you again. Everyday situation number 9. How do you reply when somebody says, have a nice day?
So it's very common in English to say have a nice day. And the proper response to that is same to you or just you too. And this applies for many situations. Merry Christmas, same to you, you too. Happy New Year, same to you, you too.
Everyday situation number 10. Can you name some alternative ways of saying goodbye?
Yeah, so goodbye is a very standard response, and it's a very good response, and you can fall back on it. However, it's the same kind of thing as these other things. So we don't actually say it that often. So I will give you some examples of other things you might say. So you could say just bye. You could say bye-bye. You could say see you later, and I think that's the thing I probably say the most. You could say take care, and take care is very nice. It's not overdoing it, and it's kind of a kind way to say goodbye. You could say so long, which is something I also say a lot. And you could say, to be totally informal, have a good one. That might be the informal one you might have in your arsenal. Okay, that's it. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please click on the thumbs up below. And also, please consider sharing it with others who might find this useful. And also, I hope you will consider subscribing to my channel as these videos come out every week like clockwork. I think it's a very good idea. And very importantly, I have a website called English Tips for Spanish Speakers, and I could really use your help and your feedback and your advice to kind of keep that project going. So you can follow the link at the end of this video or click on the link in the description box below and you'll get there. Next, I have a course called 50 Common English Mistakes on a site called Udemy. And if you follow the link in the description box below, you'll get half off the course. So it'll cost about 10 euros or $10. Finally, I have a Twitter feed, and my Twitter handle is @EpicEnglishTips. So I hope you will follow me on Twitter. Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week.